It would help if I didn't mute my microphone, wouldn't it? Because I have to mute my microphone at the end of every show. Sorry about that, guys. Let me go over this one more time then. Uh, Here, I want to do this real quick one more time. Sorry about that. I didn't have my sound on. But up here where you see where we could subscribe, there's the button right there. It'll be red if you've never subscribed to me before. You could click it and you click the bell there for notifications if you're interested in trying to catch one of my live streams when I'm live. But sorry about that with my mic being muted and all. But anyway, tonight we're going to talk about um, ants. Um, I know they've been a really big problem here ever since it got nice and warm. At least here it's warm. I know it's not warm everywhere, but here we're dealing with a lot of really warm weather. This week has been in the 70s and 82 in some areas. And so I just wanted to try to address this because it seems like as soon as it gets warm, one of the first things people start to have problems with getting in their home are ants. And so tonight I wanted to go over some tricks of the trade, some little things that you can do to try to help yourself get rid of ants, or if you're a pest control technician, if you're having problems getting rid of ants in other people's homes. Just a few tricks that I've learned over the years and different chemicals that I use and what I found to be effective. And last week we talked about termites, and it just so happens the same house I treated for carpenter ants yesterday also has termites. So the termites are active, the ants are active, everything's starting to get active again because we're just about a month away from spring. And typically February, March is when the temperatures start to rise and the bugs start to come back out. They try to get into your home. So ants are something that uh, have been kind of tricky over the years. I know that with past chemicals, older things that were around years ago, ants really weren't a whole lot of a problem. I know that when I was starting out as a child doing this line of work, I was really young, about between 7 and 12 years old, um, when I was being trained, and because I used to go to work with my father when I was really young, and I've been running a route since I was 17. Um, there's notification to let me know that I'm online. But anyway, we used to use diazinon and durazban. They were organophosphates. They were really effective on ants. You could treat yards with durazban granules or diazinon granules, and you could do even interior until they started limiting your label. You could even do the inside of homes with durazban and diazinon both. They were very effective to eliminate ants and were very, very good chemicals. Now, up until just recently, it's been a very difficult problem getting rid of ants because the only other option you have as far as a liquid pesticide are things like uh, synthetic pyrethroids, basically. They've moved away from the organophosphate family of pesticides. Most of them are not even allowed to be used indoors anymore, like different things like malathion, stuff like that are pretty much used outdoors now, and you can't really use any organophosphates indoors, and I wouldn't recommend it anyway. But what people are using now are synthetic pyrethroids a lot. And the problem with synthetic pyrethroids in ants is synthetic pyrethroids they're a family of pesticides. They are heavily based off of pyrethrins. What they've done is scientists have examined the molecule of a pyrethrin. Now, pyrethrins occur naturally in the environment in chrysanthemums and marigolds, flowers, trees, and things like that. When you take a pyrethrin away from a plant and you apply it as like a pesticide, it does not last more than just a few hours, if a few days, not very long at all. So you have no residual. And not only that, but a pyrethrin is something that um, it's something that ants recognize as a natural pesticide because they're on flowers. They crawl across peonies. They crawl across lots of different types of flowers and plants in their gathering, foraging for food and water. And so they recognize which plants are poisonous and they won't walk on them. So when you take a pyrethrin and you, like I said, you molecularly enhance it to last longer and you create a synthetic pyrethroid, ants still recognize it as a pesticide. All right, now that will work really good if you're trying to repel ants out. But what happens if you get a call and you have to go to a home and you find that they actually have a nest of, say, pharaoh, acrobat ants, odorous house ants, which are all types of carpenter ants, or carpenter ant, an actual, household carpenter ant. What do? They've got a nest of ants in their home. They're active, infesting. It's not a matter of keeping them out. It's a matter of eliminating the nest that's active in the home. All right, so the nest is in the home, more than likely gathering food and water from in the home and maybe from outside as well. So how do you eliminate ants when they recognize the pesticide barrier that you're putting down? A lot of people they'll resort to baiting. Now, I do have a video that I put up a few weeks ago about bait. An actual recipe for bait that you could make yourself. And it's pretty effective. It's really a boric acid based bait with like a powdered sugar, water. It's really pretty easy to make. It won't cost you anything really to make the bait. And it is successful. I think it's more successful than a lot of your like combat gel baits or your bait stations that you can buy for ants. That look a lot of people think of them as roach motels, but they're actually for ant control as well. Ant control as well. They have bait stations for ants and bait stations for roaches. And so based on what you're trying to kill or what you're trying to attract to the bait station, they may have the exact identical chemical, but they have different food mixed in with the bait that they're trying to kill the ants or kill the roaches with. So what you'll find a lot of times with roaches, yes, bait's good for roaches, but for ants, is that the ants will start taking the bait for a few weeks. And then you'll notice that they'll all of a sudden stop taking the bait. And this is with gel baits. This is with, liquid baits like taro. Any kind of bait that you lay out for ants, you'll notice that the ants will stop taking the bait. They'll stop taking it back. It'll work really good for a little while. And you'll notice workers will stop coming in the house for maybe 2 weeks, maybe less. And then you'll put down another bait station, and the ants won't take the bait. They'll leave it alone. They'll ignore it, or they won't walk into it at all. This is because ants are very sensitive to chemicals. They're very sensitive to food, odors, food types. If the ants have taken the chemical before and it has killed ants, because the workers are who feed the reproductives. So they take the bait back. They feed reproductives in the nest. They turn around, the reproductives turn around and turn that bait into something that the workers can eat. If the workers realize that they're killing their life source, basically, because without the reproductives, they don't live. So if they realize that they're killing off the people or the ants that are going to feed them, they go back to the bait stations. They'll mark them with pheromones that will ward the rest of the colony away from the bait. Tell them, hey, look, put up a red flag. Say, don't take this poison. This kills ants. Not only that, but they know what food they've had before. So if you say you've got like a box of like combat ant bait stations, and you put one down, and the ants go to it, and then they stop going in it. And so you're like, okay, well, they must have eaten all the bait. Let me put down another one. So you take that one, throw it in the trash, you put down another bait station, and they don't take that one at all. You realize that they're ignoring it, they're not walking in it, they're not taking the bait out of it, and this is because they know what it is, they've already been there, they already know it's poison, they leave it alone. They recognize it for what it is. It's like if you were to go to the supermarket and buy rotten meat, take it home, feed your family, and get food poisoning, you're not going to go back to the same store and buy the same meat because you know that it's rotten. It's bad. It made you sick. It made your family sick. And so the ants recognize that. They're really smart. And so baiting for ants is patchy. It's not as successful as what, logic would tell you that it would be. Because the ultimate goal is to trick the ants into taking the bait, take it back, feed reproductives, kill reproductives. Not just that, but kill workers as well, because you want to eliminate both sides. The thing about ants is that the ants aren't going to just feed from one food source or one water source. The colony typically will feed from multiple sources. So, yes, the ants may be in your house, foraging around in your house looking for food, but they may also go out of your house and go into a tree somewhere and gather sap out of a tree or bugs that die out on the ground. If you've ever noticed, they'll pick up dead bugs and stuff like that and carry them off. Um, that's what ants do. They're garbage trucks. And so they go around and they pick up all the waste and they take it back and they feed it to other ants. So you can notice that they can get food from other places. They don't have to take your bait. And so if they think it's going to poison them, they won't take it. Um, Chemicals that I've used that I have found that have worked, and this is recently, I've had a lot of problem lately, and probably the last maybe 10 years or so, finding a chemical that really works well on ants. I've used lots of different pesticides. Um, Most of your pesticides are going to be ineffective. Um, Most pesticides you buy over the counter at like Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, places like this, will have ants directly on the label, and it'll say that it kills ants. And it does kill ants if you spray them on contact. But if you're wanting the chemical to actually repel the ants and keep the ants away or kill the ants other than contact spray, that's going to be really difficult because you've got to get the ants to walk through the chemical. So how do you get ants to walk through a pesticide that they're naturally repelled by? And you can't. It's not possible. They're not going to do it. You can't force them into a situation where they're going to kill themselves. They're not going to commit suicide. So what I have been using now, the last couple years, I've used things like bifenthrin, cypermethrin, deltamethrin, different things, dusts, insecticide dusts, and things like that. Up until just recently, within the last couple years, I have just recently found pesticides that have worked really well on ants. And what I've been using, Alpine works really well. It's a Alpine WSG. It is a um, neonicotinoid. Also, Phantom is a really good pesticide for ants. It's by the same people who make Termidor. Termidor will work on ants, but it's a very strict label where you can and cannot treat with it. And so if the ants are going outside, Termidor is a really good chemical. But if they're in this house and you're going to have to apply indoors, because the thing about ants is if they can go outside and get food, they will. If they can go inside and get food, they will. If they're perfectly happy with their food source inside, they may not need to go outside at all. And so if you're using Termidor on the outside thinking you're going to eliminate a colony of ants and you're not getting anywhere, that's why. Because the ants are perfectly happy going after whatever they need in the home. So I've used Alpine, works really well indoors, and Phantom works really, really well. Now the problem with Phantom is it's not a quick knockdown. You're not going to kill them really quickly. It can take a couple days for the ants to die after they're crawling through it. Like I said, it works a lot like Termidor. If you've ever used Termidor before for termites, one of the biggest complaints I get after treating a house with termites, with Termidor, is that the termites will continue to swarm for days and sometimes weeks after you treat. Eventually they stop swarming and they die. I mean, they come out and they die all over the place, actually. It's actually pretty wicked thing. Actually, I had a house I treated with Termidor, and the workers crawled up and they died all over the place. And they were like grubs. They were really large. They had enlarged in size and everything and just died all over the place. If any pest control technicians out there today in the chat want to weigh in on this, what they've ever seen with termites that have crawled through Termidor, that's what I've witnessed anyway. And in fact, I had a house I treated with Termidor where the termites died in such mass quantities that it actually smelled like a rotten possum or something had gotten under the house, actually had died under the house. and I had to go under there and look for it, and I found piles of termites dead underneath the house. So it was just termites. But you know, when you get masses and masses of one dead carcass piled up together, even if it's bugs, it still smells like, you know, something rotten underneath the house. And so, but anyhow, the uh, the way that Termidor works on termites is it takes about 90 days to kill an entire colony. It takes one termite 4 days to die after it's crawled through it. And Phantom works much the same way. When the termites aren't actually crawling, they don't actually have to crawl through it. They just have to come in contact with other termites that have come in contact with the Termidor. It doesn't kill them as quickly as if they had come into direct contact with it. And even if they come into direct contact with it, it still takes 2 to 4 days for an actual termite to die. The reason that is so other termites can come into contact with that one and communicate. Because termites don't eat the same house. They eat lots of wood laying all over the ground. And so you can actually treat a mulch bed outside, and if the termites are eating the mulch in the mulch bed and the house, you'll kill the termites that are eating the house because of the way Termidor works, if it's the same colony. And Phantom works much the same way. In fact, when they took Dursban off the market, a lot of people were using Phantom as a termiticide because it's labeled as a termiticide as well. So you could use it that way. It's by the same people who make Termidor, and it's got a very similar label. So, anyway, that's the best advice I can give right now for ants. If you're having a problem getting rid of ants, I recommend Alpine WSG or Phantom. Read your label. Make sure you're properly applying your pesticide. Alpine WSG is a neonicotinoid, and in a lot of areas it's not allowed to be used outside. In fact, I don't believe it's allowed. I don't think they allow you to use it outside. They may. I don't typically use it outdoors. I've got other chemicals to use outside. But, in fact, I don't ever use it outside. I've just never needed to. So, anyway, I guess that's it's going to be a little short show tonight. I don't really have very many people watching tonight. No questions. If there's any questions at all, then go ahead and shoot me anything you want. I have a couple of bedbug stories I could throw out there too that I been going through here lately. Um, I had a customer that actually ended up bringing bedbugs home from a movie theater that I ended up having to go out to her house and treat her house. They're actually pretty bad. Getting into places that you'd never think of. They get onto, like I said, they get into movie theater seats. They get into libraries and pretty much anywhere people go. They could be in dining facility, inside booths. So, you know, keep an eye out. I'm not trying to make you paranoid. So, well, anyway, I guess it's just going to be a short show about ants. I don't really have any viewers tonight. Everybody's busy on a Friday night. Don't blame them. It's been really beautiful outside. So you guys have a really great evening. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned, and I will see you next week.